Welcome into Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. NBA free agency is just a couple of days away, so I thought it was a good idea to look at some players that the New York Knicks could sign in NBA free agency. You might say, well, Marsh, the Knicks don't have any cap space, and that is true. But the Knicks do have the right to use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which comes in at about $12.4 million. And if Josh Hart, who had his player option deadline extended until Thursday, if Josh Hart opts into his player option at $12.9 million, he could sign a long-term contract with the Knicks, but it also allows New York and Leon Rose to be able to use this non-taxpayer mid-level exception and not have to go into the luxury tax, which is something the Knicks do not want to do. So we're going to talk about players the Knicks can sign with this non-taxpayer mid-level exception. And let's talk about a guy that just won an NBA championship for the Denver Nuggets. What about the do-it-all guard forward, Bruce Brown? He's a guy that I thought played a critical role for the Nuggets as they went on to win the NBA Finals. In 80 games played in the regular season for Brown, he averaged 11.5 points per game, 3.5 assists, and he was super efficient, right? 48.3% from the deck and almost 36% from downtown. In 2021, he shot the lights out of the ball, connecting on 40% of his three-pointers. He's a very similar player to me as Josh Hart. I think he's a guy that's a junkyard dog, does whatever he has to do to help a team win. Go guard the other team's opposing best player on offense, he'll go do it. Go hit the glass, he'll do it. Knock down corner threes, he'll do it. He's a winning player, and he's someone that is repped by CAA. So you know the New York Knicks are definitely keeping their eyes on Bruce Brown. I'm sure the Nuggets are going to do everything they can to bring him back to Denver. But if the Knicks offer him maybe that full MLE, they might be able to pry him away. He's a guy I'm definitely keeping my eyes on as free agency starts to open up in a couple of days. Another player we're going to talk about that I'm a big fan of is Donte DiVicenzo, the big ragu out of Villanova. What about bringing him in to the New York Knicks? We've heard Ian Begley report that there's people inside the Knicks front office that are fans of him. Bill Simmons projected that the Knicks were going to sign him to a 3-year, $30 million deal. Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports is saying there's a connection between the Knicks and DiVincenzo. A whole lot of smoke here, and for good reason, right? The dude shot 39% from downtown with the Golden State Warriors, had his best season in the association this past year, played 72 games. He was a productive player. He was good in the playoffs for the Warriors. And the Knicks, they need another guard in the backcourt. I know you got Emmanuel quickly, but after that, who do you have? Do you want Miles McBride playing a lot of minutes? I like Deuce, and I want McBride on this roster, but he is the perfect guy to be the first one out of the rotation. The Knicks need another guard outside of quickly that can handle the ball, spot up, and play alongside Jalen Brunson, and DiVincenzo has shown he can do that dating back to his days at Villanova. This is what I think is going to happen. Josh Hart, he's going to opt into that deal, the player option deal, gives the Knicks the full usage of that mid-level exception, and I think they're going to sign Donte DiVincenzo. I think it may already be done, as DiVincenzo, Hart, and Jalen Brunson are probably laughing it up in their Villanova group text. Keep your eyes on DiVincenzo. I think he's likely to be a New York Knick. If DiVincenzo or Bruce Brown are not going to sign with the New York Knicks, what about a scoring small forward out of the Eastern Conference, Caris LeVert, the former Cleveland Cavalier? We saw LeVert have some really big games in the playoffs against the New York Knicks, most notably at home. He can get really hot. He can light it up from three. He can score from all levels of the court, and he's not that bad of a defender, and he gives you some size at the wing spot, coming in at about 6'8", 6'9". This past year for Cleveland, the guy knocked down his three-pointers at a 39% clip, which is a pretty damn good number that you want to see from a guy that gets the type of looks that he does. LeVert would be a good scoring option off the bench for the Knicks. They need another guy that can put it on the deck, pull up from the mid-range, and knock down deep three-pointers. LeVert is a player I definitely think the Knicks are going to be looking at. What about Georges Niang? Niang's not going to command the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception, and you're able to slice and dice that kind of up over a couple of different players. And Niang could be a player the Knicks are interested in. Why? He could be an Obi Toppin replacement for you. He is one of the best stretch fours in the NBA. I mean, look at the three-point percentage. Over the last 4 years, the guy has never shot less than 40% from downtown. Only going to play about 15, 20 minutes for you per night, that similar role as Obi Toppin. But how about we get a professional shooter in that Obi Toppin role instead of a guy like Obi that had to morph his game once he came into the NBA? If the Knicks want a guy that could play alongside Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein that can stretch the floor and knock down threes at a superstar clip, Niang could be a player New York is interested in. The last top guy we're going to talk about before we talk about more mid-level exception targets. What about Seth Curry? Rep by CAA, one of the best shooters this league has ever seen. When you talk about players that I want to add to this team, it's players that have played at the highest level, that have played on the biggest stage and have performed in the playoffs. And although Steph Curry only shot 33% from three this past year in the playoffs, look at the prior 3 seasons. I mean, in 2021 and 2020, the guy averaged 14.5 points per game. And in 2020, over 18 points per game. And he had a 57% field goal percentage and 50+% from downtown. He matched that in 2021 and actually exceeded it by getting that number to 52.2. I worry a little bit about the defense in the backcourt when you talk about Quickly and Seth Curry, especially a defensive backcourt if you have Curry and Jalen Brunson on the floor at the same time. But man, a movement shooter like Curry that makes your offense flow, that could be a bailout for Randall, Barrett, or Brunson when they drive. Nothing like passing it to somebody named Curry in the corner. He's one of the best in the business from deep, and I wouldn't mind him being a New York Knick, just a little bit small, not the perfect prospect, but nobody is at this point, because if they were perfect prospects, they'd be going for more than the mid-level exception. We're going to talk about some more players coming up in a second, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to sound off in the comment section. If you could only choose one of these 5 guys to sign if you were Leon Rose and the Knicks, who would it be? Is it Bruce Brown? Type BB. Is it Donte DiVincenzo? Type DD. If you want to bring Caris LeVert to Madison Square Garden, type CL. If George Niang, this 3-point specialist at the power forward spot, is your guy, type GN. Or if Seth Curry is who you want to bring to the Garden, type SC. I want to hear from you guys down below. Remember, free agency this Friday, and we are going to be live on the channel breaking it down from absolutely every single angle. So subscribe to the channel, New York Knicks Now by Chat Sports. We put out videos every single day on the New York Knicks, but we are going to crush it during NBA free agency. Multiple videos every single day. So if you want to hang out with myself and Patrick Seatman on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as we go live for free agency, subscribe and turn your notifications on. Also, we have a deal alert. We talk about deals all the time, but this deal is only going to be here for maybe a day or two. We have limited size options for these t-shirts. You can get 2 Knicks t-shirts for less than $30 at chatsports.com/Knicks combo. The deal is not going to last forever because the sizes are flying off the shelf. If you want to get 2 Knicks t-shirts for less than $30, go to this link, chatsports.com/Knicks combo. Alrighty, some other mid-level exception targets. Well, I don't think these guys are players that the Knicks are keeping their eyes extremely close on compared to the first 5 guys. They definitely are watching how their free agencies are going to unfold. Let's talk about Yuta Watanabe, the sharpshooting three-pointer from the Brooklyn Nets. He's a guy that knocks down the three at an exceptional rate, plays only a little bit of minutes, didn't have that huge of a role for Brooklyn last year. It's not going to cost you a whole lot of money to sign him, but if you want a 3-point specialist to come off the bench, Watanabe is a guy that definitely could be of interest. If you're looking for a wing that can knock the three down, didn't do it all that well in the playoffs, but had a really good regular season 3-point percentage. What about Torrey Craig, the 3-and-D wing, formerly of the Phoenix Suns? He's another guy that I'm going to be looking at. And then if you can't get DiVincenzo, I think Jevon Carter is like DiVincenzo, but just a little bit worse on offense and better on defense. You can get him for much cheaper. He's like Deuce McBride on steroids, if you ask me. A little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, plays better defense, knocks down the three at a little bit better of a clip. Carter could be a pesky on-ball defender coming off the bench that Tom Thibodeau could want to add to this roster. Joe Ingles, a veteran, crafty offensive player. He's a playmaker. He can shoot it. He can score it. He's got that IQ. Not the greatest defender anymore, but if you're looking for a veteran off the bench that can knock down the threes, get others involved, and create shots for himself as well as his teammates, Ingles could be that guy. Josh Richardson is a player that we have talked about a lot on this channel. I'm a big fan of his game. He could play point guard. He could play the 2. He could play the 3. He can guard 1 through 3. He's a veteran. He's becoming a better shooter every single year in this league. I think he just plays the game the right way. He can even score in that mid-range spot a little bit. I think a backcourt bench group of Quickly and Richardson makes some sense. I'm going to be monitoring what goes down and how his free agency plays out. The last player we're going to talk about before we get to a group of players who I think are less likely. Let's talk about Kendrick Nunn, the athletic guard that used to play for the Lakers, now for the Washington Wizards. If the Knicks want to add another point guard to this team, he's a guy that could do that. A little bit more of an actual point guard than Deuce McBride, but definitely not someone at the top of my mid-level target board. Quickly, let's go through these guys. Dillon Brooks is someone that I think is going to go for the mid-level, maybe a little bit more. He might be right outside the Knicks price range. I don't want him on the Knicks, to be quite frank with you. Good defender, but really at this point a bad offensive player, and he's kind of a head case. I am good on Dillon Brooks. What about the guy that pretty much knocked you out of the playoffs, Max Strus for the Miami? He caught fire in that second-round playoff series. He was knocking down threes. He was someone that couldn't miss, it seemed like. And the Knicks need more shooters. Strus could be an option for the Knicks. What about his backcourt mate, Gabe Vincent? I don't think he's as high, or the Knicks have that high of an interest level in Gabe Vincent. I think Vincent's going to go look to be a starting point guard somewhere in this league. The Knicks don't have that role for him. I think he's going to go somewhere and get a bigger bag. If the Knicks want to look at another wing scorer, maybe Caris LeVert isn't their cup of tea. They could turn the page to Kelly Oubre, the smooth left-hander, who is really a complete player but just hasn't put it all together. He can get to the deck. He can pass. He can knock down shots, and he can play defense. It just seems like he's only giving you a glimpse of what he can do, and he hasn't put it all together. I like Oubre as a player, but there's definitely some risk there involved as well as dating back to his injury history. Russell Westbrook, I think is going back to the Los Angeles Clippers. The Knicks at one point were actually the betting favorite to sign Russell Westbrook in NBA free agency, but I think that pipe dream is dead. A player that I would actually really like to see the Knicks go out and target. What about Grant Williams? I know we got a lot of smoke for inciting a riot with Jimmy Butler in the conference finals, but I respected that dog, and I respected that fight because he was the only one who looked like he cared about winning that ball game and not getting bullied. Grant Williams, he's a hustler. He's a good defender. He can play small ball forward. He can knock down some outside shots. I think he'd fit well with the Knicks, and I think he would be a favorite of Tom Thibodeau. If he can come for the cheap, I'll be a fan of Grant Williams. If you're looking for the best offensive big really in free agency that's not going to command a whole lot of money, Christian Wood. He's one of the best big man scorers off the bounce. He can score at all three levels. It's just he's not really a defensive player, and he's not a guy that I would think Tom Thibodeau would be that big of a fan of. Maybe you replace Obi Toppin with Christian Wood, but at the end of the day, I don't think that Wood will be a player of interest for New York. I would love for the Knicks to go out and sign Rui Hachimura. He's just a restricted free agent, and I believe whatever offer he gets, especially if it is a guy, if it is a deal, where he's getting mid-level money, the Lakers are going to match that. I mean, the fact he went for a pair of second-round picks is impeccable. I wish the Knicks would have traded for him at that time. I was really impressed watching him in the playoffs. I'd love to sign him, but I don't think the Lakers are going to let him go. We've gone through how many players did we talk about on today's show? Like 20? We broke down every single player that could be getting a mid-level deal out there. Maybe none of them are your cup of tea, though. So I want to ask you to name a free agent you want the Knicks to sign. Comment their name down below. I'm interested to see, and maybe we'll do a video on a player if they get a whole lot of comments about them. As always, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you guys for tuning into New York Knicks Now. As always, free agency, Friday. We're going to be live on the channel, so lock us in, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and let's party on Friday.